This is Ska. Ska. This is Ska.
So welcome to the History Ska Hour with your hosts, Jose Rojas and myself, Daryl Rubio. Our guest today is, of course, a radio DJ, veteran promoter, and beat happy label owner, Middagh Goodwin. Middagh, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking your time
Thanks
to have
for
us.
having me.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Love your background, first of all, your shirt, big fan. We're going to start off with a couple questions. So the way that starts, I'm going to ask a question, then Jose, and then we'll go back and forth. So the first question here we've got for you is, you used to be a Southern California native, but you moved to Central California decades ago. What took you to Central California?
Central California, yes. My sophomore year in high school, moved from Hawaiian Gardens. For those who know Hawaiian Gardens, uh, Norwood Fisher, when he found out I was originally grew up in Hawaiian Gardens, he said, "That's thug."
Yeah.
The largest gang band bust on U.S. soil was in Hawaiian Gardens. The capo of Barrio Hawaiian Gardens, when it went down, was my best friend when I lived in Southern California, Jorge Flores, who was the leader of the gang at that time. It was just a family. He was pretty much had to. He didn't want to, but family tradition.
Right.
But moved to Modesto. That would have been about 1982-ish. So just as things were starting to pick up in ska in America, I mean, you think about it, by the time, Dance Craze came out, that was, 83, hitting the shores here. And, the Madness compilation, Madness on Geffen, that was 83. So I'm moving to Modesto just as that's hitting. But I'd already knew the Untouchables and seen them at Knott's Berry Farm when I lived down there. Other bands, from that area that were those incubators of the scene, I guess we'll call them.
Okay.
But my mom was going back to school, and she was able to write her own master's program at Stanislaus State. So she got her master's in film literature. And so, but that was like, okay, I'm going back to school. I'm going to get my master's. We're going to move to Modesto so that I can do that. I'm a sophomore in high school. Like, the thing that sucked about that, and it took a while, but a friend of mine, Will McAllister, he was a saxophonist, played in some bands in Southern California. But his brother had won tickets to see, I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of those mega tours. And it was Madness, Thompson Twins, Howard Jones, and the Police.
Great lineup.
And it was like 3 or 4 days after school was supposed to start in Modesto. My mom said, "You can't, you're too young, and school's starting up, yada, yada." Get here, transcripts don't go. I don't start until my second weekend of high school anyway. So I could have totally done it. I got money. I was working this summer. I'll pay for my bus trip.
Right.
Years later, I've seen Madness. I've seen several times, saw the Police. Never saw the Thompson Twins. But, it's like some of those bands, those iconic bands at that time would have been amazing.
Right. Exactly. In their heyday. Well, that's awesome.
But,
Yeah, I wanted to ask how did you get into ska? But you kind of already touched on it already. You said you saw little shows here and there, and had bands that you knew.
well, getting into it, I mean, there was just, most of those bands when I first saw them were local bands, along with Black Flag played Artesia High School when I was going to Killingsworth Junior High, so which is now I think Fede, but they played the high school. I rode my bike over there to watch them.
Wow.
All that stuff was just around you. Much like when we started, when you were doing shows, when I was doing shows, those kids coming out, some of those bands that we booked back in the day are now icons.
Mm-hmm.
When we booked them, it was pulling teeth to get people to come out sometimes.
Right.
So at that time, that was it. And when I came to Modesto to start booking, it was kind of a necessity. So friends that I've had that were in bands from Southern California, I could book them, do a show. They'd come up, we can hang out for a day.
Right.
And then as it goes, is you book one band, it goes well. Then the next band wants you to book them. Then the next one, and then they tell their friend, "Hey, our friend in Modesto, our friend in the Inland Empire, our friend wherever is doing these shows. You should hit them up." And at that time, it was all no emails. It was all phone calls
Right.
Word of
or
mouth.
somebody
Word of
writing.
mouth.
Right.
When I first
And all
started,
shows were promoted by flyer, by handing out a flyer at the show before.
I still do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better.
And it's like the internet is a tool, and it's a great way to disseminate the word. But there's so many people out there trying to do the exact same thing you are that it gets lost. We all know that.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So if you don't do flyers, if you don't do everything you can to put the word in front of people. I used to go out to every show when I was promoting, if it wasn't mine, especially, had flyers in both pockets, be just walking around, click, 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 click.
right.
Go to other towns, handing out flyers for shows that were adjacent. And some people show up, some people wouldn't, but at least you put it out there to them.
Right.
And I
Of
think
course.
Mhm.
that's a big thing. As long as you, as a promoter, and bands need to do more of this. So many bands don't step on their side. I'm not the promoter of this show. Half of those bands are willing to spend $500 to play the whiskey and sell tickets, but they don't want to make a flyer. Like, make a flyer, get it out there, put it in people's hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was it. Just coming to Modesto, and I started doing shows, and then I started doing radio around 85, late 85, or late 85 or 86 at Stanislaus State at KCSS. So I'm definitely not the first guy who was playing ska on the radio in the US at a college radio station. But the show was called Maximum Ska and B, play on the Who's Maximum R&B and Bad Manners Ska and B.
Yep.
And my show, it was very much like what Gil Sanchez does with his Twist and Shake radio.
Yep.
But I also threw some new wave stuff in there. But it was ska, soul, punk, whatever I liked, I was just playing.
Yeah. I know Gil plays a lot of mod. He's a
He
big fan,
does. I played a lot of mod stuff on there.
Yeah.
I love the Jam, Lombrettas, Merkin Parkas, all that stuff. And that was the thing. People always give me groups like when I share a mod related thing, hey, the Jams thing, or Quadrophenia came out on this day. I always get pushback, especially from the English, but it's like everywhere else in the world that hit us at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Quadrophenia and those first two, the specials and Bad Manner, or not Bad Manners, English Madness albums coming out at that same point in time in 1979, hitting our shores. So I'm 58 now, so a little bit older than you guys.
Right.
But it hit, and that's why, when you went to the On Club, there were scooters all down the block.
Wow.
The Untouchables didn't call themselves a ska band; they called themselves Mod Ska Rockers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not just LA, that was Chicago, New York. A lot of bands around the country did that. And a lot of bands, even in England, mod bands would have a ska song or two. Like, what was it? The Lombrettas had their ska version of Poison Ivy.
Right.
So, and then even there, once again, the Mod Mayday tour, Madness and Selector played on.
Mm-hmm.
And the Modettes played with all those guys. So there's all those bands that kind of cross promoted, and bands like the Jam would play with English Beat, and they were big fans. Hell, what is it? Dave Wakeland does his Mod Monday post every week.
And that was like the scene back from, you and I, when we were younger, everything was fused together. We all went to the same shows. We all went to the same soul clubs and listened to Northern Soul and all that stuff. It was all combined.
Yes.
The oi and the skins and the
Yeah.
traditional
I
stuff.
never really dived into the oi or even the real hardcore stuff. I like some of it, but I went to some of the shows, and a lot of those bands played in conjunction with, because it was, back in the early days in LA, you saw hip hop and ska and punk and thrash metal all on the same bill because none of those clubs wanted any of that on the bill. So it all went on one.
Right.
So they were
All
going to
kind
do
of
five
the
shows.
rejects, right?
It was like a Sunday or a Tuesday, and all those bands played together, and you saw a band like NWA playing with, the Untouchables or Fishbone or something like that,
Yeah, that'd be
uh,
wild.
Beastie Boys or Bad Brains playing with, Skank and Pickle, the Slambodians, whatever. And it was like, that was it.
Right. So I got a question for you here. You recently ended your tenure on the Entertainment Commission in Modesto County. What is your primary occupation now?
Well, that was a non-paid public service gig. I joined up because there was not a lot of people, and like it needed to happen. It's the Entertainment Commission. In a lot of towns, they have similar commissions. Listen to people who want to get permits for their businesses, for events. And so I would go in and sit, and they would talk about it. And the fact that I have a background in promotion, uh, I felt gave me at least some uh, edge to be able to advise and also make recommendations on things that, living in Modesto, or in Stockton for a long time, living in LA, other towns that I've lived in that I've done events at, be able to go, this is how they do it elsewhere. Maybe we can streamline this a little bit. It was supposed to be 2 4-year terms. It ended up being about 12 years total.
Wow.
Because of the pandemic, and then not having anybody sign up after the pandemic to continue on. At the end, when the last meeting I had, they got 5 new people brought in to be new board chairmen, and at that time there was 3 of us. So now there's 7. They got a full quorum. But before, if one person didn't show up, we couldn't have a meeting.
Really? Wow.
So yeah, that ended. My paying gig is, I call myself a feral cat wrangler, but I'm the managing editor for the Modesto View, which is kind of like the OC Weekly. It's a monthly entertainment magazine here in Modesto.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And then
Now
I
I
make
gotta
that big ska money doing the DJ thing.
Oh, of course. That's where it all comes from.
Oh yeah, the massive riches of doing ska.
now talking about DJ. Did you always wanted to become a DJ? And how did you start? You said you started hosting on a radio station.
I started in college radio, like I said, in the mid '80s, and that was at KCSS, Stanislaus State, and I did that for about 3 4 years total. Did it a few years, did a little traveling, came back and started again for a little bit. And that was fun. And when I came back, what was cool was that was right around, that was 88, 89. So as things were hitting, uh, it was kind of cool. Was able to give away tickets to just about any show for Berkeley Square, Slims, because they were, oh, your radio show? Yeah, you're going to promote it? Here's a couple tickets. And that was
Nice.
great. And part of it was like, okay, if it's a show I want to go to,
Uh,
hey, Daryl, you want to go? Okay, you just won these tickets. Let's roll.
Right. It's kind of
But
like
on
when
the
I
other
worked at Tower
side,
Records. We used to get free
I
tickets all the
always
time.
enjoyed radio growing up, and so like living in LA, listening to KROQ or KLOS, and then coming up to Northern California, I listened to a lot of college radio in high school, and then I was able to hook the television antenna. Remember that, kids? No, you don't. We used to have an antenna that went way above the houses that you would suck the airwaves in to listen to something or to tune into a TV show. And sometimes you had to twist it just right to get that in. But I could hook it up to my dad's. He had a vintage receiver, tube receiver, and I could get the Berkeley station, college radio station. And so I listened,
oh,
and then also the Quake. So I got a lot of the cool hip, 80s sounds from the San Francisco radio station, and then Maximum Rock and Roll was broadcast from the Berkeley radio station. So I got my doses of punk rock, and then later uh, found out about KCSS at Stanislaus State, which is where my mom was going. So I just showed up one day. I'm still in high school. Hey, can I sign up for a radio show during the summer? Which turns out that's what Chuck Wren did later on. Was he did a summer session, and he was first starting doing his show as a fill-in for people at the station, And then he did a summer session when everybody went away from college because he lived there. And then when they came back, he had already established his show, so he had a permanent time slot and was able to move forward.
Yeah.
So that was radio, but also, Wolfman Jack.
Oh yeah, I remember Wolfman Jack.
Watching
The
American
midnight
Graffiti.
special.
Yeah, watching American Graffiti and seeing the Wolfman Jack character, that was cool. Just it's like, hey, this guy's cool. My uncle also did radio for a long time, so there was that little bit there. So it was just fun, and it was a connection to music. I perform, but I don't consider myself a musician. So I don't practice enough. So those that practice and can just do whatever, you show them something, they're done. No, I fake it.
Right.
But that was my radio thing. And then October of 2019, I started doing a local show on the local community radio station, uh, uh, KCBP 95.5 FM here in Modesto. And a few months later, right before the pandemic, I pitched them with a ska show, and they said, "Let's do it." And then the pandemic hit.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
kept doing it, but I did it from home. That show, the This Is Ska, has never been done in the studio.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because I did it. Okay, well, I got to figure out how to do it from home. So I figured it all out, bought some stuff, and then when the pandemic opened, I was like, well, I'm already doing this on 60 stations. I'm just going to keep doing it from home and sending it out. Can I still upload it? Yeah, go for it. If I don't go get that call in, which is always fun, I might want to do I might start doing the local show on air again. Go in there on Monday at 5, do the show for an hour, record it so it could be rebroadcast, but that's it. That's an easy one. But and I've had offers for people who want me to go live on their stations, but I'm like, dude, that's 3:00 a.m. my time. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night
Oh man.
and not get paid.
Yeah, I need my sleep. So
Yeah.
you also have a Central Valley Ska Festival that
Yes,
you had this
there's
year going
Central
on your
Valley Ska
second
Fest
year.
that's
Tell
coming
us
up
about that.
in March.
It's you
The
and
5th
Josh, right?
anniversary of This Is Ska will actually be March 8th, 9th, but we're doing the show on the 28th, and that's with a band that you're doing a show with, Stop the Presses, Brunt of It, and then the Bracers, who are from up here.
Right.
And then the Central Valley Ska Fest is an idea I came up with, but I'm still hoping that other people will take it, because the whole concept is bands from the Central Valleys, promoters from the Central Valley, use the name, use the promo behind it, and set it up in Chico, in Bakersfield, in Fresno, in anywhere. Just book it, call it Central Valley Ska Fest, do your show. The bands that are from out of town, take care of them. Local bands, give them some beer.
Right.
You got 7, 8 ska bands on a bill. Nobody's making any money off of it. So let the bands who need the gas money take the gas money and elsewhere. And so I actually have had Dave Bracer do most of the contacting, because I'm like, dude, you're in a band. You want to play the other places. I'm not looking to play any shows elsewhere. I'm not a live DJ. I've done live DJing, but I'm not going, hey, I'm going to book you down here. Let me drive up to Chico for $25 to DJ your ska night before you play.
Well, that's good. You're teaching the next generation too.
But he makes those connections. He makes that. He gets his name out there. I've helped him get on the Specialized comp now 2 years in a row. So the Punk Pioneers, and then Skank in the 80s, and then Fem Her Anthems, which will be the next one. They'll be on there along with some other bands. So Paul reached out again this year, which will be my second official time working to get bands on that compilation, which I think is a brilliant comp. 4 CDs, tons of covers, most of them are new, and the money from that goes to children's charities.
That's amazing. And that's Do the
That's
Dog
cool.
music, right? That does that? That puts that out?
No, that's Specialized Projects CLC from they also do the big one.
And that's Sean, right?
Flower would Do the Dog.
Flower
He that's a whole different setup. Mostly Bakesley albums coming out now.
Got it. Yeah, I've seen some of those. There's a lot. They have like tons of different cover ones. Like it's like a Rat Pack one. There's like a,
Yes.
like you said, the 80s. There's a new wave one.
Yeah, they
There's
started out
all
with a
kinds.
specials one and then a madness one, a beat goes cancer or whatever. So they did some initial ones, which were basically two-tone band cover CDs. And then at a certain point, they started doing themes. And it's like I said, now they're 4 CDs, uh, tons of bands from all over the world, some
Right.
established ones, some bands that aren't. Uh, and I think they're not just are they a great compilation, a great resource. I mean, it's always nice to get that to go, hey, I'm going to play some something like, oh, I want to do a block of cover songs. Oh, I know where I can find some.
Right.
Uh, and like I said, being a physical release and raising funds for charity, you can't go wrong.
So
Yeah.
going back to the Central Ska Festival, you have some of the same bands, but you have some newer bands
Yeah,
that you've
yeah.
added
There's
this
quite
year,
a few
right?
new bands. I mean, there's a few that are new-ish to it that we haven't even booked before. Perez. I'd have to look at the. Give me a moment. I can run some of those. But I like Agawana. They played up here before. They're from Fresno. They hadn't played yet. They played Modesto. They played Lodi. They played the area. Played
And
Fresno all the time.
these are not just straight up ska bands. You got some
It's
reggae's, you got some
mostly
roots
ska,
rock.
but there's some reggae bands, and it just at a certain point, those who were available. So it was like, okay, sometimes you got to once again back with the crossovers with punk, ska, hardcore, whatever else.
Right.
Sometimes you're like, okay, what is adjacent enough that people are going to enjoy it? And these bands, because the other side is by doing them and having them all be Central Valley bands, much like some of those shows many of the shows you did early on, they're all like Inland Empire bands, and they're all in one show, and the crowds come out because they're at like 5 different high schools that are all within an hour of your location, and all those kids come out to see the show.
Because they go to school with the band members.
Yes. So with this one, it's kind of the same concept. It's like, hey, you're not driving too far, so it's not a burden gas wise. You're not, but you can also link up. So next time, if you like this band, you might go, oh, hey, I have another show. We're looking for a band. You guys want to play this?
Mm-hmm.
Or hey, we got offered a show we couldn't do, but would you like to play it?
And then you
You
also
know,
find out bands that you don't ever want to book again, too.
yes. So that's a lot of that one was just the concept of how can we build up organically build the Central Valley scene up again without just throwing a lot of cash at it or something. And so it's not like we're going to book a bunch of bigger bands, hope that people want to come out. Like, hey, let's develop the talent that's here so that when those bigger bands come through, they have a draw as well, so that they can help the draw of the bigger bands, and it becomes a uh, nice synergy.
Sounds great.
And
I got a
Matthews
question.
Compy is just kind of like, hey, let's try something again. That's uh, not a a festival, but nothing that we're putting a ton of money into, but paying the bands, trying to build something from the ground up.
Right. And it's good. Went down from
And
2 days to 1 day now, right?
I think we did two. We added a second day last year, and it kind of worked, but uh, it was mainly Chris from the Warsaw wanted to play,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he could only do the Friday, so we did a little pre-party on Friday.
Got it.
But even that one mainly it's just most of the bands are playing the second day, or on the Saturday after that.
Right.
So
I got a quick question. Which is the most requested song on your station?
not doing the request thing. Like I said, I'm not on the air per se, or
Oh,
it's not a radio in calling. I will say that the number one song I played
okay.
would be "Freedom Sounds" by the Skylights,
Mm.
and the number one artist that I played over the last 5 years would be the Skylights.
Nice, nice.
Great band. Great band. First time I
Yeah,
saw them was up in Kresge College in Santa Cruz in '92.
nice, nice.
Right up in
Uh,
my face, right there. And it was amazing.
yeah, I had the pleasure of booking once. It was a Halloween, and it was the last full show that Roland played. And I think we were
Oh,
talking a little bit. I wished I just went. I'm going to record this. Sound
yeah,
guy, hey, you want me to put a tape in?
that would have
And I
been
was
the
like,
shit.
we didn't get permission. Let's not.
Right.
And then 2 days later, he collapses on stage, gets rushed to the hospital, and within a month, he's passed away.
Yeah.
And he was on fire that night. All those guys were.
Yeah. Amazing band with all the originals. There's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
like
I
it.
mean, I've been lucky that, uh, of course, none of us saw Don Drummond, but I was lucky that I've seen most of them. I've seen uh, the Skylights with Roland, Lester, and Tommy McCook all
Mhm.
together. Of course, with both Lloyds.
Yep.
So it's like, I mean, of course,
Williamson brother.
Matthew stopped touring with them. So basically, Kevin's been touring with them, as far as we've seen them,
Right.
our,
Right.
our, our adult lives. But yeah, amazing band. And it's where it started. So that's basically, I try to lead every show with either that, or there was a point where I decided I was going to play Freedom Sounds, a different version of Freedom Sounds. And so I played other artists as well for about 6, 7 months. So it was like live version, different versions recorded for different albums for the Skylight. And so it's like, oh, here's a version by Monkey, or here's a Taj Mahal Trio, or whoever, it's like, here's a different one. And I started click, 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 and about 6 months worth, you
Yeah. I
know,
think one of my first CDs was that Stretching Out album, that double CD.
that's a
Amazing.
good one.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Let's segue into your time as a promoter, and you're still promoting. You've done it for several decades. I know you've booked a shitload of bands. Tell us about some of the bands that you've booked, from the biggest to like the smallest over the years, decades.
Um, let's see. Well, I think the article, one, Dr. Rock and the Movement Patrol were a 12 piece when I first started booking them.
Okay.
Lawsuit, another 12, 13 piece. So, lots of members. Or were you talking like the biggest band I ever had
Oh
on
no, I'm sorry.
stage?
I guess most popular.
I get it. So,
Okay.
so of course, you and I, if you've booked every small, so many small bands that just went nowhere, that nobody's, unless you start going through flyers, we've already forgotten who they were.
Right.
Um, and there was tons of them, but as far as I've literally, and it took a while, but I've booked from A to Z, every letter of the alphabet, from the
Really?
Aquabats to the Zillionaires.
Wow.
For the longest time, my holdout was the Q, and I booked the Queers.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah. I've seen
I've
them.
ended up booking a band called Queens, and then Quintessential. So like after I booked one Q, it just seemed like
Really?
a series of them. But yeah, A to Z. Uh, but I've booked the Slackers, I booked the Skylights, I booked Skank and Pickle, I booked uh, just a ton, Ska World. But then I've booked Plain White Cheese. I've booked uh, just thinking about it, it's like there's so many of them. It's like
Yeah.
both of us have booked Janitors, The Adjustments, Mill Ticket, Aquabats.
Yeah.
So there was all those bands that just were like they flowed through. I'm
Right.
always surprised ever so often, like going, I never booked that band. You know, uh, I've booked Alkaline Trio, Against
Yeah.
Me. So
Oh, yes, me.
then I've booked Mad
Nice.
Sin, Phenomenauts, like on the non-ska world. Uh, uh, MDC,
All right. Realistic.
RKL, so a little bit of everything. Um,
That's funny because I
and then
saw.
there's some of those ones where you book them, like I said, Plain White Tees blew up. Les and Jake at a certain point were huge. I booked some of their earlier shows. I booked one of I think 5 Les and Jake / Mike Parks Bruce Lee band shows.
Right.
I or a promoted one. I booked 2. So I did the Stockton show with them, and then in Fresno I hooked up Dr. Rocket to open up for them. So those were 2. I didn't do that show; they did it, but I was like, hey, Mike, talk to these kids.
Right.
But yeah, those sometimes you do it. I did book the show that uh Arrogant Sons of Bitches broke up at officially, like they've decided we're quitting, was mine.
And that's all in
You're
Central Valley.
welcome. You're welcome, America. Now you got Jeff Rosenstock doing his solo stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Some good bands there.
But yeah, it's like trying to go back and think about it. I did do a list at one time, and then uh Facebook decided to delete that section, notes. And so it's like in the notes there, I'm like, I was just going down and be like, oh, well, who else did I book? Add them to it. Oh yeah, I remember them. And like speaking of it, I'm like a Skylit Drive. Remember those kids?
Who was it?
A Skylit Drive.
I don't know
They were
that
one
one.
of the big screamo bands from Northern California. They were on, uh, uh, but their very first show I booked, they did a 15-minute set for me.
That's pretty awesome.
So they were playing. There was another band that I knew the kid's father was a accountant. He said, "Hey, my son has a band, you know." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll do some." How many? Like, yeah, he had like 2 or 3 songs. Like, no, I'm not having a band set up and break down, spend more time getting on and off stage than they're going to actually play.
Right.
Hmm.
But I go, I'll tell you what, if they, and he goes, well, they got a friend band. I go, well, how long do their friends band play? And like, well, I'm like, if they share all the same gear, they can both play.
Because you Modesto, your area was the stop. It was a must stop
Well,
for
I was in
all touring
Stockton at
bands
that time.
because you had a shitload of people come out.
Yeah,
You
I
promoted
was
the
in
shit out
Stockton
of
at
the
that
band.
time. But yeah, I think it's like anything else. If you build it, they come.
Yeah,
So
I've been to your shows. I've with the adjustments or the hippos or you know, we all had to go through there.
yeah,
It's a must stop.
my I don't think you were at that one, but my noise band Novocaine played with the Hippos once, and in Los Gatos at the not Los was it Los Gatos or Campbell. It was the Gaslighter. Eric Finale had put the show on. It was Conspiracy, Bad Dog Set, which at that time the drummer was the drummer for Smash Mouth when Smash Mouth was still the Gents, or it just
Mhm.
turned to be Smash Mouth. They were just kind of getting off. And uh, Mike Mattingly was supposed to be playing bass at that show, but he didn't. He got mad at Mike or at Steve again. Steve was the one who wrote "Gas My Car," "Bacon Jamaica," and a bunch of early Skank and Pickle songs. Him and Mattingly were best friends before Skank and Pickle formed. Their band with Mike Park broke up. Mike Manley decided he was going to lean in with Park and leave Steve, his best friend from for years, and they kind of fell out. And then later they got back together and did some stuff. But uh, I ended up playing horns with every band that night, faking it.
Oh,
I didn't know the songs, but I have a long running jazz noise band called Novocaine, and it's just atonal, a barrage of noise. And we played that show, and we were supposed to be second or third on the bill, I think, for whatever reason. It's like, oh, it's like you got horns. That you're a ska. I'm like, we're not a ska band. Don't put us on your show. But I agreed to do it, and the owner made a comment about how we reminded him of Mothers of Invention, Frank Zappa, and that was the second or third time within a month that people have said that. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, that was the Hippos were playing that, and they just signed Interscope at that point.
oh, okay. Yeah, that was
Um,
after they left me.
uh, but yeah, with Novocaine, we did some shows. We played with Agent Orange. We played with Souls of Mischief. So those bizarre shows that you get put on or festivals, and it's like, okay, all right. Uh, a little Dr. Rocket thing. I don't know why Aaron hasn't got him on, but Darren Fletcher, the drummer from Dr. Rocket, is the drummer for Airborne Toxic Event.
Hmm.
All those weird bands that have come out post ska boom, all have a ska member in them.
Right, of course. There's always a connection. It's like that Kevin Bacon connection, was that?
Yes,
Yeah.
the 3 points of ska. It's like the drummer from Attaboy Skip being the drummer for the Killers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You
Yeah.
know,
I know Nicole used to manage them, didn't she?
yes.
Nicole Shoestring.
So well, uh, Ben, who was in the Benjamins, who also was later in Man Planet, who I booked a bunch of times, uh, later managed everybody. He managed the Replacements, managed Modest Yahoo,
Oh wow.
managed a ton of acts. So at a certain point, it's like, okay, it's like Ariel. It's like some of these guys are like, oh,
Right.
and you know,
Like
uh,
John Panel too. I mean, he went from House
yeah,
of Blues to he's booking these international bands too. It's amazing.
yeah. So
Cool. Jose?
No, yeah. I got. Now, do you ever have any live bands perform in your show? And if you,
on the show, no.
no, okay.
I have one of the things I do semi regularly is I call 3 Tracks and You, and I'm like, hey, why don't you come on? you got this project you're working on. We'll plug that. We'll talk about what you're doing, and then you pick 3 bands that influenced you. You know, it can be a new bands, old bands, just bands that you want to talk about and get out there. So the last one I think I did was I've done it with the Scothers. So some I've done full interviews with. Some, like the whole episode is an interview, and we go back and forth with stuff. And I've done stuff with John Joy or Joy Altruda. I've done it with Aaron. Aaron's been on the show 3 times. Aaron from
Carnes.
Aaron Carnes in Defensive Ska.
Mr. Flat Planet.
Adam's been on it once. So Jerry Miller was my first interview.
Oh,
which I thought was appropriate because they were one of the first live ska bands I saw as a kid that I remember at least. And so that's been a fun one. It's like every so often get it, but Mark Wasserman has come on, Kenneth Partridge has come on. So Heather Augustine has come on. We've done a segment. So between a full show and a segment, but I kind of like the segment of just 3, about a 15-minute us talking. We play a few songs, talk about those songs, talk about their projects. And then if they're in a band, we play songs related to their band. So Charles Benoit, who does some ska band, and This Is Ska Jazz radio show, not to be confused with This Is Ska. He's come on, and we've actually been doing trade-offs where I'll send him a little segment of 3 tracks. He'll send me a segment of 3 tracks on International Radio Ska DJ Day or International Radio DJ Day. I usually try to reach out to a bunch of DJs and try to cross promote because I think it's important. I've absolutely never had one DJ on my show. Say no more. Say no more.
Okay. I know.
And there's
I think we know who you're talking about.
A DJ list that I created, and I didn't put them on because, unfortunately, they take advantage of people sometimes, and I'm not about that. For our community,
right? Yeah, I mean, there's some people that can tolerate that or just overlook it, but sometimes those people are kind of outed or whatever. I don't know what it is. Let's segment into beat happy music.
Yes.
You have you still release things, I know, because I still get your stuff. We have your first 7-inch
on Safari with, yes.
On
Kevin,
Safari with, of course, they had Mustard Plug. Who else has Mustard Plug? Punch the Clown. God, I have all their stuff too. Independence. Oh man.
Did you get the Punch a Clown record that came out?
I do. I have that one.
Yeah. So that was great to see that they took the best stuff from the couple different records, put it on one to have it out on vinyl. But yeah, Punch a Clown, Independence, and then I had a band
Spies
that fell out.
Yeah.
And Spies on Sabbatical were members of the Independence, and then the second one, Space Heaters. Who's on that one? Easy Big Fella, Space Heaters.
Critical Mass
and Scholars. The Scholars.
Michigan.
Scholars ended up being Telegraph.
Yeah. I booked them. I mean, you booked them too. I booked them when they were down here. I booked them with Meal Ticket, Fiber and Frenzy, Hippos. All the same bands that you guys do.
Yeah, the funny on that one was I booked them, and the singer was best friends with the bass player, but I believe roommates at that time with Jay Navarro.
Jeff, right? Jeff.
And so I booked Suicide Machine after I'd booked the show, and then I was like, I didn't tell them that Scholars were playing.
Oh, really?
And that one, the Ready Man and Stinkfish, or might have been Siren 6, but I think it was Stinkfish still. Stinkfish, Siren 6, or Stinkfish, Siren 6-ish, whatever.
Yeah.
I think Stinkfish, Ready Man, and I believe that one was the Sandwich Mafia opened.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like 400 kids showed up.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Siren 6 was amazing.
They were.
I didn't see Stinkfish. I've only seen Siren 6, but Ready Man, love those guys. They're awesome.
Honestly, Ready Man from that style, maybe my favorite.
Yeah, they're awesome. You also released, what is it, Dr. Rocket?
Dr. Rocket and Moon Patrol.
And the Moon Patrol. Yeah. Also, you got that one.
Those conniving. Yeah, and that was the back cover was out in Arizona. What was the club? I can't remember the club. But there's that really, you look at it, it looks like there's a massive crowd there. That's the crowd. Yeah.
Six
That
The
was
people.
it,
picture
huh?
just looks so good because you got the Mohawk guy and you got them
Yeah.
there, all right up front. The band's there. Just the framing of it looks so good. Okay, we got to put that on there.
Right. You also
Yeah.
have a Devo tribute
Yeah, Mashed
compilation.
and Potatoes, tribute to Devo. And the interesting about that, there's at that time ended up being two Devo tributes that came out.
Is there?
I
Oh,
did mine,
yeah.
and then Paul Goodwin put out one. No relations.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, that's kind of
Wow.
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you also have this
So
is
I
the
believe
most
the
recent.
Aquabats are on the other one.
Which other
But yeah,
one?
they came out within, I think
Oh, the
mine came
Devo.
out just before his. But yeah, it was like right there.
Right. This is I don't know if this is limited edition or what, but this was the Smoke and Mirrors
Very
one
limited.
that you put out there.
Yes.
It's just got your little stamp on there. But is
Yeah, I was like, and
don't
then the
tell me
front
that's
is
David
stamped.
Bowie, right?
Yeah, David Bowie.
Okay, that's what
Uh,
I thought.
so I thought, hey, it's kind of a mashup. So I like made little hand stamps, to stamp them by hand,
Right.
and that was a fun one. So yeah, I think I will do another one at some point. I would really like at some point to do a 12-inch version, and that was a plan originally for the On Safari series was do several of them and then compile them into like either CD or a 12-inch.
Yeah.
Probably a CD at that time because that was the
The
efficient
rage.
way and not spending too much money. But was hey, there's these 4-song compilations that will lead up to a full length and go
Right.
there. So I think at some point, probably not taking those songs, but new songs and put a compilation together and call it On Safari with Beat Happy Music and just kind of a collection of bands from wherever.
You got to start recording off that soundboard for some of these bands from the festivals that you have.
Might have to try to do that, but it's also there's so many bands they have songs and there's a lot of great bands that people just don't know, and that was the great thing about compilations back in the day. Now
Mhm.
you can find anything if you really look for it, but there's still if you don't know what it is, finding new things sometimes are still hard. And so, a compilation was always that way of, hey, here's at least one track. Know the name, what they sound like. If you choose to go down a rabbit hole and find out everything, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But you have that basis. And that was, I always say back in the day, that was our thing, buying any compilation.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
You use that as
compilations.
your Google.
Yep. Hmm.
We didn't have Google growing up.
We didn't have internet or cell phones
We
Yeah.
had
or
Ask
smartphones. Yeah.
Jeeves.
We had a phone hooked to our wall.
Jose?
So
Yeah. No,
so
I got
yeah,
to
I
put
think
out.
it'd be fun to just do one again, put it out there. And I might end up doing, I've talked to a few bands about collaborating with them to put a record out. It's just it's still a lot of work. And um, one of the reasons that I kind of stopped was distribution. I had great distribution, getting it out there, but getting paid back was a problem.
Oh, that whole
So I
three
was
month thing
distributed
was
through
the worst.
Rots and Cargo.
Yep.
And both of them, when Cargo went under, I never received any of the product back, never received a check for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember.
And Rots ended up owing me money as well. And so when
Yeah.
you're just doing it as a passion, it's basically hey, I got my income tax and putting a record out.
Yeah, the whole waiting period there to see if you're going to get any returns was horrid.
Yeah.
Because
I bet.
as small labels, like you wanted to press more, get that money to put into something else.
Well, that, and you're wanting them to give, it's like, hey, can you give me some money? I'll give it to you for half the price if you pay me now.
Right. You know what was the best? We had a distributor down here. I'm sure Bill with Sound of California back in the 90s. Bill will give you cash right there. He'd buy a couple boxes of the product, give you cash right there. Even though it was a little lower, you got it right
Yeah,
there.
but you had the money in hand.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
I loved how he distributed there.
So And that's unfortunately, you get the bigger ones. Yeah, you're out everywhere. I mean, I go on Discogs every so often. Usually, when I find my stuff, it's Japan or Netherlands or somewhere else that somebody had bought it, and now it's up for sale. And I'm like, oh, cool. But most of that, I don't think I ever got paid for.
Oh man.
I mean,
Oh
Lookout
man.
went out of business because they weren't getting paid. Moon Records went out of it, and these were big companies
Mhm.
that had product out.
Right.
You think they would be able to weather the storm, but didn't take much. A couple distributors going under,
Yeah.
and those can't get paid.
Now, what do you think about the ska scene nowadays? Like, do you think it's growing with newer bands and more listeners and more shows out there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is that research, and we're not. I don't think we're at the same point as we were in that late '80s through the '90s.
90s, the third
You know,
wave ska movement.
I mean, at a certain point, there was a ska show and there was a ska band in every town, and just about any county there was a ska show happening once a month, if not every weekend.
Mm,
And bands were touring. I mean, as talking about Siren Six, there was before they moved to Hollywood. I had people who thought they were from Stockton because they played Stockton 4 or 5 times a year. I'd bring them out. They play Stockton. They play a show for Froggy up in Sacramento. They play a Bay Area date with like Slow Gherkin, and then they go play LA or whatever. There was one year where they
uh,
came out, played here. They flew out to Japan, played Japan, came back, played another show. So within like a month and a half, they played 2 shows in Stockton, and they're from Minneapolis. And people, oh, now they're from. It's like no, they're
oh,
not from Stockton. They're not from Sacramento. They're from halfway across the country. No, they're not. But they could afford it. They could make it happen because so many people were coming to shows, buying merch. And that's a
mhm.
big thing. Every show I do, I'm always like, you know, follow the bands, the labels, the stations that bring you great music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go see the bands and buy their stuff. That's the only way to keep it going.
Right. One of my pet peeves always being on tour with bands is some of these bigger venues always trying to take a percentage of merch. I'm like, that's how we survive. That's how we
Yes.
go
That's
sleep in the
messed up.
van.
Mhm.
So a little. I did merch for a lot of bands over the years. Did merch for Ill Fated tour with Captured by Robots, but I did merch for
Hmm.
Skank Pickle for a long time. Did a tour for merch for Les and Jake on the Hello Rockview tour of the West Coast. Um, and on that one, there was the Hundreds Theater in Las Vegas,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, this place! They want 30% of all merch sales." The Hippos
Wow.
played that show.
Oh,
They
really?
opened. They the Hippos actually paid more out in merch sales than Les and Jake
Oh, damn.
Wow.
because they didn't listen. I was
Well,
like,
when
I
I
was like, one, if you have 4 shirts in 2 different colors, put all 4 of them up. Now you got 8 things up. You don't count what's up on the wall out, but you count it. You don't count it in, but you count it out.
right,
Don't. I was like, it's textile only. It's shirts and sweatshirts. You don't wear it. I'm not counting it.
right.
And the guy you're talking to, as long it's not the boss, it's just some rando that's coming over working, couple. Like, oh, okay, if that's
Yeah,
how it is.
exactly. Yeah,
And I
I
just
remember a mini tour we had with when I was with the Hippos with MXPX and Face to Face. And
F those
we were in
guys.
we were in Orlando, and they were trying to take a percentage of the merch. I'm all, what the hell are you talking about? So I had to call um, Rich Egan, which was Face to Face's manager at that time, and go like, we didn't fucking talk about this. There was we the Hippos got on the show because Aquabats couldn't do it, so they got the opportunity to do it, and we went through Arizona, Texas, and Florida, a couple dates in Florida. It was probably the biggest shows they played back in '98, I think it was.
Solid lineup.
Yeah, it was a great lineup. It was awesome. Getting to know those bands. I mean, God, I was a fan of MXPX and Face to Face, and getting to see them every day was just awesome. And getting to know the guys, which is it was great. As a stupid kid back then. But the merch percentage, it's just ridiculous. I don't know how it is now with what they do. But the indie shows are the ones where you're going to keep every dollar in your pocket because that's how you're going to survive as a band.
Oh, but yeah, my thing was the more money they would want percentage wise, the less I'd give them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of the places, every show, and I tell people, if somebody asks you for a merch rate, and sometimes you got to pay it, sometimes but ask them for their 1099
Right.
or your taxes.
Right.
Now you're a
See
little
what they
band,
say.
you're the hippos, you've sold $400 worth of merch. You report that, this band that, has reported that they've sold, $3,000 worth of merch total in the last year. 400 was at your venue. So it's, pretty good size. Well, you had the Deftones, you had MXPX. You're not reporting all this any money coming in from all this merch sales. What's up with that? Because it's all cash.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So 90% of the time, 95%, they will not come back to your table.
Mm-hmm.
You ask for a tax document, they don't want to handle it.
Well, I normally
There was
when I
there
had
was a
the
venue
contracts for
on
these
Warped
bands,
Tour. I think it was in Idaho in 2003 when I was doing it. So we were nonprofit, so we weren't paying. I was out with Plea for Peace Foundation, but I went around. Tsunami Bomb was on it. Less Than Jake was on it. Suicide Machine were on it, and I'm going around to friends, man. I'm like, because I heard them like, oh yeah, 30%, at 30%. So I was like, went up and like, look, when they get here, I'm like ahead of the game. I'm going, we're out of here. I see them like I'm hitting everybody. I'm like, ask for a 1099.
mm-hmm.
Ask for a 1099. Tell them you can't give them the money till you got your tax receipt, itemized. Boom, boom, boom. So I at a certain point I see the guy walk up to the merch boss of the venue, and he literally tells them, anybody who asks you, don't go back.
Right.
Because they're not
Well,
reporting that.
yeah, I never dealt with any of that shit. I always had it in the contract that they would take no percentage. I even had in the Hippos contract that if they were promoted as Hippos instead of the Hippos, there was a certain percentage of the door we would get. And they never
Oh,
made that mistake. I think once maybe they did it, but I remember that. I just
Yeah.
had you have to make everything sure everything's in there. It's just
But even
dog
having
eat
the
dog.
contract, then you got to fight it. You know, you got a venue there and your stuff's inside. You got 8 big old bouncers saying, "Give me $200
Right.
and get the f out of here."
Mm-hmm. But
And
mm,
your
usually
gear and
when
your
you have
merch
the
is there.
band
You
that they
give them
want
the
to
two
see,
hundred bucks because it's extortion.
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
normally you have the upper hand if you're the band manager. These hey, you want them to
Even
play.
then, a lot of times.
If you want them to
I mean,
play, then
how
they'll
many how
play.
many shows do you have an agreement with somebody and they don't pay you?
Oh God, yeah, I know. I've even there was one show I remember with the adjustments in God. I think it was Colorado. Forgot where it was. The promoter didn't even show up. He didn't
Huh.
even, and we heard that the whoever showed up was like 8 people showed up. It wasn't
Yeah,
even promoted. It's like, are you kidding? This is
yeah.
ridiculous.
So that's something. There was I allowed some people come in when I was running Plea for Peace in Stockton to outside bookers that book a hardcore show. At the end of the night, there's not and I told the guy, look, you need to have a local or two on here.
Mhm.
No, 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 these bands are big, blah blah. Like 22 people show up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not enough to cover the opening band from San Jose, let alone the headliners. And so the two guys, oh well, we'll go to our banks, we'll both of us go so we can pull the money out, we'll get you covered. They didn't come back.
Right. God, I mean,
And the one of the bands came to me. I was like, well, one, I don't even know you. I'm just a venue. I didn't even get covered for my expenses tonight.
right.
So like I'll let you have the door, the $220. You divvy that up however you guys want. Here's these two. I go, if you don't have their phone numbers, I have both their phone numbers.
Right.
And one goes, well, I got an email. I go, well, here's their phone numbers. I think they ended up getting paid because it just, it went out on the internet and, they just were like harassing around it. It was like, come on, guys, don't promise something if you can't deliver. There have been shows where night of, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be great. So, but it's like, I bring the money. My
Right.
cash box is basically the guarantees for the night. At the end of the night, whatever I have to pay out, I got to pay out. Whatever's left over is what I've made. But you know, you don't promise something to somebody and not deliver.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, promoters
Yeah.
like us back in the day. I mean, I've lost my ass. I'm sure you have before on shows, but we do it for the love of the music, to spread the music, to have people hear it, not for to get paid. But when you lose your ass and you're paying money out of your own pocket, totally sucks. But
It does suck.
so worth it when you get to see the bands that you want. Like, um, God, I forgot what it was. It was I used to book at a tiny place called Dizzy Debbie's that used to be called the King, where Joey Jump with Joey used to play all the
Yes,
time,
yes.
and it was a tiny ass stage, and MU 330 and Slapstick were up north, and I wanted to book them, and so I had agreed. I forgot who it was that I agreed with them. I don't know if it was Rick Bondi or I don't know whoever from back then. Remember that goes from Tahoe Agency. Remember back then?
Ozark Agency.
Oh, Ozark. That's right. That's right.
That guy was the
Steve
worst.
Ozark. Or so whoever it was, Rick Bondi, I think was from Tahoe Agency.
Yeah,
But
Rick Bondi on Tahoe.
some of those, and so I had promoted, I think it was Hippos, Slapstick, and MU330 to play that show. So Slapstick came down. Of course, Hippos are local that they played, but MU did not come through. They didn't come down. They said they didn't feel it was actually worth it. So it wasn't a huge show. It was like on a Wednesday or something like that. But then Slapstick made a huge amount of money on merch, which I think that's the only time that I remember that they even played here in LA. But shit like that, you just never know what's going to happen with shows. You never know
No,
what happens with bands if they're going to, come through or not. It totally sucks, man. But
Yeah.
for the love of the music.
I did a show, and I can't remember the name of the band. They're unfortunately their RV got hit by a semi. They all survived, they're all fine, but they were like, hey, we can't do the tour. But they didn't post anything. So I'm there day of the show. I see the singer. He's there. He's doing merch, blah blah. And at some point, I'm like, uh, like at the end of the night, or at a point in the night, it's like, oh wait, they're not even here. Like, where's the rest of the band? Where, lineup. It's like, oh no, this is it. I'm like, and then the tour manager comes over at the end of the night, and we had a board deal percentage. It was like a Wednesday, and he's like, okay, so 70% of the door at $15. How many people got this? I go 70%. No. He goes, what? Like, he goes, well, we have a contract 70%. I go, yeah, we have a contract. There's two bands called headlines. One of your headlining bands is gone, and two, you have your support band. Well, nobody informed me that the co-headlining act was gone. I go, one, I would probably still give you 70%, and I could have added an extra local who would have been stoked to play with the two bands that made it here, and probably would have brought in some extra kids.
Right.
But I'm like, I'm not paying you for a band that's not here.
Yep.
Like, but we got a contract. Like, okay, let me see this contract. And I look at him and I go, blah, blah, blah. I go, okay, three bands, 70%, yada, yada, yada. Break down the three bands. I go, so, it's, of the 70% is 30%, 25%, 15%. There's your 70%. So tonight, this band was supposed to be the headliner. That's 30%. I'm taking that off the top.
Right.
He goes, well, I was like, well, you know what? I can give you nothing. Because if you want to talk who broke the contract first, it's you guys.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Like, yeah, you're right. I go, so I can give you the money, but maybe talk to your booker, because no, you guys didn't follow up. You haven't posted anything. You're showing up to places. I go, there's a kid that I'm gave his money back and said he could still stick around because he came to see the other band that's not here. He drove 3 hours to get here.
Oh,
That's
wow.
messed up.
Yeah.
Another band who showed up at the end of the night because their band broke down and was asking for the percentage of the door. I'm like, for what? You didn't show up. You didn't play.
Right.
But we had a contract. I go, yes, for you to play. You don't get paid if you don't show up. But we're
Some
here
people
now.
just they don't get it. But
You're here now?
so you hear an insurmountable amount of ska. What are your current favorite ska bands?
Current favorites.
Ska
I
type
really like the
band.
Prize Fighters
Okay.
from Minneapolis.
Mhm.
They are great. Yes.
I really, really like Kitty Hawks from Australia.
Okay.
as far as newer ones. Really, I'm waiting on it. It's in the mail. I'll probably get it after they play. I see them at Supernova, but Lollipop Lori
Oh
from
yeah, yeah.
I've really enjoyed their stuff
Hmm.
since day one. Those guys, I mean, they've been around for a while, but they're finally hitting the scene here. They've played Mexico a lot. Supernova will be their first time in America.
Right. I'd love to see them.
But it's weird as I still like a lot of the ska punk stuff. I still like. I grew up listening to Two Tone and then went back. But as far as a promoter, 90% of what I promoted was ska punk stuff, or American third wave ska, because that was what was available. That was who was coming through.
Right.
But I do find myself that if they have kind of a two tone sound or more traditional sound, I mean, Hepcat was always brilliant. Love seeing those guys. Jump with Joy, amazing. Western Standard Time Ska Orchestra, doing the big band ska tribute to the
Shout out to
Skylights.
Aton.
So good. So seeing bands that lean into that, I love it.
Right.
But as far as American ska bands, Fishbone was, and still is one of my favorite live acts ever. So it's a weird thing. Like I love that, love craziness,
Hmm.
but just to listen to and enjoy, it's going to be the more leaning more traditional, well-rounded, well-crafted songs. I've always loved a great crafted song, regardless of what it is. So, I was a bigger fan of Madness and the English Beat than the rest of them. I love the special, I love the Selector, Bad Manners, all that. But Madness is one of my favorite bands of all time. Devo, obviously doing a tribute, my favorite band of all time. Elvis Costello,
Yeah,
love his stuff. Well crafted songs.
definitely.
So for you guys, let's turn this table on you guys. What bands that haven't been mentioned that you're listening to now? That's a newer act that people need to listen to.
I
Jose?
want to say Power Up. Power Up. I like their new album. It has a lot of energy to it. So yeah.
For mine, it's
I
they
know
one
it's
of
a
my
hit
favorite.
pose, but they're not really doing anything right now.
Oh no, no, no. So no, currently do things is I know a lot of people in the band already, but um they've been amazing. The last two records is Bite Me Bambi. So I
Yes.
love
Oh,
those
okay.
guys. I
Yeah.
know a few of those guys in the band, but just their music is just amazing. The songwriting, the lyrics, they're just great, and I love how they promote themselves, their
Yeah, a
videos.
lot of fun. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So
Well,
I,
that's the thing I love in pandemic, how many younger-ish, even some of the bands that have been around a while but maybe not known, like Half-Past Two really leaned into social media. Bite Me Bambi, really into it, doing,
Mhm.
hey, we're doing a live version, we're doing a cover, we're doing some live stuff in the studios, we're putting it out there.
And they do
And
Patreon
that I
stuff
think
all
is
the
great.
time.
But Cat Bite. There's so many great female fronted
Yeah,
bands now, a lot more than I think there have been. And there and I really dig most of the acts that are coming out on that front. There's definitely some that come out and uh, they're good, but all of them. Like music is subjective, and that's the thing. It's like everybody enjoy whatever you want to enjoy. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. Um, it doesn't have to be ska. You can call
Mhm.
it ska, and it probably isn't. Not to gatekeep, but just to teach. There's
Yeah.
certain elements that make a song ska, and it isn't the horns,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not even the upbeat. It's not even the offbeat. Polka's on an offbeat, and it's very upbeat, but it's not ska. A lot
There's
True.
of
True.
Latino
there's a
stuff
lot.
is,
So just like you, Mida, I'm a huge collector of music, just in general, but most of my shit's ska.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I have a
but
ton of it, and most uh, albums that I buy for my collection, I subscribe to Jump Up's club. Have been doing
Mhm.
that for years. I always shout it out every year. It's like, you guys go get it, because
Yeah,
it
we see
is.
your videos of you opening all
Oh
your
yeah, I do
mail
see it.
from all the
Oh,
different people.
I I might get myself in trouble here. Um, I'm looking at buying a large collection here soon. If it all comes together, probably spend more money than I want to, but so much good stuff.
Someone's personal collection?
Yeah, so
Oh,
much. I'm not going to buy it all because there's so much of it. And the guy has a ton of reggae stuff and some punk stuff that I have no interest in. I like some reggae, but I'm very specific. But a ton of just when you see the unboxing, you'll be like, I'm going to get some of it for sure.
well, yeah. I if there's anything in there, I'd love to be considered for something you don't want or would be willing to part with. There's a lot of stuff that I've come across over the years. I like a lot of obscure stuff
Yeah,
from different countries, one-offs, bands, and stuff like that. I've discovered a lot of great bands just from looking on Discogs and ordering stuff. Like the ones that I've discovered like were the MIBs that I didn't know who they were before. There's just a bunch of other bands that I've heard of that I've collected. It's just great stuff, and I just love that crazy shit that like nobody knows of. Sometimes it's not good, but it goes in my collection somehow.
where I'm at now, just about every area of the room is records, Heavy Manners, Bat Me Bambi, Fine Young Cannibals, Agrolites,
Mm-hmm.
oh, Japanese ska punk,
Cool. Oh yeah,
Signed by Dave. Oh, that's a fun one. Red vinyl. I
Oh
paid a
yeah,
quarter for that. Color fill, Bad Manners,
of course.
Evo, and that's just some of the records sitting next to me.
Did Oi Skullmates come through your area?
What
They
was
were
that?
just here like about a month ago.
One more time.
Did Oi Skullmates come
Oh
through
yeah,
your
they
area?
just came through. They dropped a single. I saw after they were playing out. They played a show in Mexico and a show in LA, and that was it.
Yeah, they played with the Skapesh mode and God, somebody from When I Open. What's his name?
Yeah.
Kevin.
Did you make it out there,
I did
Kevin?
not. I really
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to, but
I would
that's
have
like
loved to.
with in LA here, dude. Getting anywhere, especially going to Orange County, is going to be 2.5 hours at least.
Oh no, for sure, for
I,
sure.
I wasn't into that.
But yeah, it would have been great to see them. But yeah, I was like uh doing a. I mean, for me, it's the extra 6 hours just to get down to Southern California from here, and then get to wherever I need to be.
Right. That's
So
how it is.
it's definitely has to be a little bit more than one notice, and then two.
Yeah.
Either of you planning on Supernova this year?
I am. I got my
I think
ticket
I'm going to do
already.
the train, the
Transatlantic?
transatlantic train.
I'm
I
not too
think we take the
familiar with.
train from Emeryville outside of San Francisco to New York, and then head down.
Oh,
Like
okay.
200 something dollars,
And how long
Wow.
does it take?
3 days.
Okay. That's probably
You
why.
can make it longer if you want to because you can get off and on, and then it
Yeah.
costs you a little bit more. But I'm like, I've always wanted to do that trip, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to
Mhm.
plan it out. Leave a few days early, head out,
Hmm.
visit some friends in New York, probably ride down with them to uh, Fort Monroe, see
Is
the
this going to be your
show, and
first
then fly back.
supernova? Is this going to be your first supernova show?
It will be my first supernova. Yeah.
I went. Jose went a couple. I think Jose went last year, but I went the year before that. I just can't go anymore because it's my son's birthday that falls within that. Unfortunately.
Well, it fell on my mom's birthday weekend, always does. Unfortunately, she just passed away,
Oh, I'm
but that
sorry.
also opens me up to do things again because I've been taking care of her. So, um, uh, I did like every year. Tim always like, hey, you got to come out. We got you covered. And uh, when Tokyo Ska played a couple years ago, I
Yeah,
planned on
You're
going,
great.
yeah, that was awesome.
and
That's why I went.
yes, and I wasn't able to, but the other side of it that the 14th or 15th, I think, whatever day, one of the days that weekend, uh, Ringo Starr, the All Stars were playing Modesto,
Oh, really?
and I was offered tickets for it, and not just any tickets. They ended up being front row center.
Oh, okay.
So really,
Yeah.
I was spitting distance to a Beatle. So I figured that made up for it.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. You on the This Is Ska on Facebook, your posts there. I don't know how you do it, but you know every person's birthday. I don't know how you can even do that. Is that even humanly possible?
My mind is still a still trap, a little rusty, but it's all about spreadsheets.
Yeah, yeah. Because you
You know,
you also do the Central Valley spreadsheet for all the shows that are happening as
that
well.
is actually Curtis
Oh,
for
Curtis.
the
Oh, Monkey
NorCal
does that. Okay,
Ska and Central Valley Ska. Yeah,
yeah.
that's Curtis from
Curtis
Monkey,
Meacham.
who, if you haven't picked it up, has a great dub album out on Smoke and Mirror Sound Systems label, Escape Hatch Records.
It's kind of hard to keep up with all the stuff that John's putting out there, man. Because
Right, right. Um, and I actually did the liner notes to that one.
oh, is that right? That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
My
John's
my
got a good thing
first
going.
my first rendition, I think, was a little uh rough on the Monkey Boys, but you know, John was like, "Hey, can you rewrite it? Can you focus more on this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But John is that guy that if you ask you to do something, you agree. He expects you to do it and do it in a timely manner. So whenever he asks me if I say yes, I'll do it, I, you know, sit down and I take care of it right then. And within an hour or two, I send him a first draft,
Mhm.
and then we go back and forth.
Yeah, Curtis has been around for a while. Monkey's been around for a while, like
Monkey has been,
a damn long time.
yes. So I think they're going on 25 or 30 years,
Yeah, that's insane. I know
something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
They
he did the MC for Supernova.
I
Um,
think they formed in 97 or 98. It
yeah,
was like right as things were popping, they came on the scene. And, and that was one of those things. I know Curtis gets a little disheartened because he's not mentioned in any of the books, really. He's not mentioned, wasn't in the Pick It Up Scott in the 90s movie and all these things. And it's like, well, you missed that bubble. You weren't part of the LA scene. You're a little goofy, but not got punk goofiness. You're not real
right.
big fish goofy. You're two Tony, but you're not let's go bowling, two Tony. You got a little bit. You got all these little things in there, and it's great. You're a fantastic live band, but you didn't. You don't have a full identity.
Right, and it's too bad because he's contributed to the scene greatly, and to kind of be bypassed like that, it sucks. I mean, I know the feeling too because
Yeah. Well, I
with the
mean,
stuff that
you
we've
think
done.
about it. You guys had Mill Ticket on there. They were phenomenal. If they would have stuck it out a little bit longer, they would have been the Safe Paris, I think.
Yeah,
You
Oh
know,
man. Yeah.
right. Yeah, definitely.
they
I
they
mean,
were
Denai's
great.
voice is just amazing.
The Hippo.
Yes, her
I
voice
mean, if
unique.
Scott would have continued to be on that upward spiral, and they would have
Mhm.
put out you know, the next ska album and not make it. I like it. I like their major label debut. It's a great album, but it's not a ska album.
Mhm.
And I think it was one of those things where ska fans kind of like, it's like sometimes you get in that position where you have to change your sound to meet what is required, and
Exactly.
you lose old fans. And then by that time, as a band, you kind of are running the course, and unless it pops,
Right.
you break up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's it's unfortunate with that, but um, the ska scene's still going strong, which is great. We've got a lot of great bands that are still touring. Wanted to touch base on the Stop the Presses is coming through. They're going to be with Brunt of It. They're playing only a handful of shows. I believe it's 5 shows in LA and one for you. No,
Yeah.
no,
Well, and then they're
So
playing
I'm
a
sorry.
festival in Oakland.
5 California shows and one
Yeah.
in Vegas.
One here. They're playing Oakland. But yeah, they're rolling through. It's going to be great. Both bands.
And
I've
they're
never seen Run of It. I've booked Stop the Presses before,
Mhm.
but it's been a while. I've seen Allie since. She also does the Crazy in the Brain thing,
Oh, yeah.
uh, and so I've seen her doing that. But yeah, I booked them. I think their first tour out to California when they were still in Florida, still kind of leaning on that uh, no doubt kind of LA-ish kind of, well, beach. I mean, they're in whole Florida, so the East Coast version of No Doubt. Hey, we're sunny, we're light, we're happy, we're a ska band. We got a
Right.
female in the band. You know, but I love what they've developed into, especially now that they're in New York and they've hooked up with with a lot of great bands out there.
Mhm.
You know, they've worked with H&J on their records and all this stuff. I love that Chuck is putting their stuff out.
Yep.
And then Bluefish, who's part of Run of It, he used to be in Hoodlum Empire.
Oh, okay, yeah, from up there, yeah.
So when Ian Miller left Hoodlum to join up for Skeng and Pickle after Mike Manley was out, Bluefish came in and played with them for a good long time
Got it.
until Rob went off on his walkabout and never came back.
We are going to have Stop the Presses on. We're going to interview them on Tuesday here. We want to touch base on Stop the Presses is going to play, and Brunt of It, I believe, is going to play for you for your 5th anniversary of the
Yes, the 5th
This Is Ska
anniversary
radio show.
of This Is Ska. So that will be the official date. I wish I'd grabbed my. I posted a picture for this week's or last week's, I guess this week's Ska announcement. Hey, here's the show. But I made some koozies.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's basically this design,
Cool.
the loafer from Dance Craze, and on the back it says "Skank responsibly."
That's great. That's
You know, little play on it. So those will be there. You know, I just kind of use the coming from that background of not making money off of doing shows and sometimes losing it, but you know, one take care of the bands. I kind of still do that with I make merch for the show, and you know, I gave hundreds of stickers away at the Voodoo Glow Skull Mustard Plug show
Mhm.
with Half Past Two, and then Lestistics play. Did Lestistics ever play for you guys from Sacramento?
No,
Lestistics,
no.
so good. And then blanking on his name. Went off and did played saxophone with Mike. Goes by Satori. I'm blanking on his name, but when did the RX Bandit stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Borth originally was with. He did Link 80 for a while, but originally was with Lestistics out of Sacramento.
Okay.
Kind of a hardcore band with ska tinges, but just so good. And they recently got back together. They played the first Central Valley Ska Festival, but they were opening, brought a good crowd, and it was, you know, great to see Frank up on stage doing his thing. It'd been a while. You know, he's back with the family, so hopefully that all goes well. I know there's still some issues out there with people. People say things, people do things. Sometimes people go crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad he's back. I tell you the truth, you know, I like his sound.
Yeah, but you know, I've always enjoyed. Efren was fantastic. You know, known him for a long, long time. I actually have a copy of the first Death by Stereo 7-inch that they put out, and way before anybody knew him, he and Kevin came out to a Les and Jake show I was doing merch for, and they sat on both sides of the stage, dressed as metalheads, drinking shots of Jack Daniels with some bikini babes with them.
Nice.
They're in Hollywood, and it was hilarious. And even before they went on, they were up there doing it, and some kid comes up and was like, "I don't believe there's some metalheads up there. What the hell? This is a Scotch." I'm like, "You don't know those guys very well."
Right.
Walker's favorite band is Iron Maiden, and Chris loves his metal.
Right.
Like hell, we got a T-shirt that says "All my best friends are metalheads."
Yep, exactly.
So, but yeah, it's like a great front man. But I love that he's back doing his thing with Death by Stereo, and love that he stepped up with Cadillac Tramps when he's doing that. Little side note: the last Cadillac Tramps albums that came out on Triple X I can't remember the name of the album. I have it somewhere, but has no horns on it because I didn't play them.
Oh, is that right?
They'd asked me to come down and play, and I busted my lip like 2 weeks before, and so I wasn't able to. And then they just didn't bring anybody else in.
Yeah, because you're irreplaceable.
Well,
It is.
I think it was just, you know, they're like, "Hey, come down. We'll have you play on a track or two," and I didn't, and so they didn't have anybody playing. I don't think it was a matter of replacing me or not. It was just like, he's cool, but you know, he's not here, so we're not going to worry about it. But
All right. So we're gonna wrap this up because it's getting a little later here. Just wanted to thank you very much, of course.
I like how you say it's a little later here, but we're in the same time zone.
So with the Ska
It's
History
not
Hour,
like you're talking to Mikey Root in Florida. I'm not in Florida in Hawaii.
we're trying to keep it within like an hour to an hour and a half, maybe.
Unless
And
you have meal ticket on and it's 6 hours long.
well, that went on a lot because that was more of a
Oh, I believe
reunion.
it.
That was a big reunion for them, which is great. So, and then now we've got them kind of hopefully get them back together and do some one-off reunion show or something. But um,
Yeah.
it's been great talking to you. You've
Always a
been
pleasure.
a force in the
Well, maybe
scene.
maybe we'll see you at Supernova this year. Like I said, that's the plan is to make it work this year.
Well, I've always wanted to get to your ska festival up there, but a 7-hour drive
Yeah.
is a little daunting
Well,
over
well,
there.
maybe talk to John Castro. John usually drives up.
Oh yeah,
He can pick you up in LA and bring you up.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Mikey Root flew in from Hawaii
Yeah,
last year, and it was weird. He was just like he really is enjoying the Bracer stuff, and then he's one they changed their song lyrics around to for that same old show. Mikey Root.
yeah,
Uh, uh, so they did a version of one of their songs for his theme song. So he loves it. He booked it last year. He'd actually booked him in Hawaii that weekend that we did the show, and so Mike or John Castro came up because he's Ska super fan,
yeah. I know.
and so Mikey saw that uh, knew the Bracers were playing and was considerate. And then when we announced the stepdaughters, he called me up and said, "Hey, if I came over, I checked the flights; they're really cheap right now. If I buy a ticket, if I come over, can I do a DJ set?" Like, yeah, 100%. And so his son lives in the Bay Area, and one of his best friends from high school lives up this way. So they came out with him, and so that was cool. He was able to see his son, see his, one of his best friends, come see the show, see Castro, see me and Josh Kuntz and the gang, see the stepdaughters, see some
Yeah,
other bands, and you know, it was fun. And a lot of those bands, like the Hellas, uh, um, Voluntary Hazing,
Ants in My Ice
are
Johnson.
still getting people out there to know who they are, but they're great bands. And that
Right.
was my thing. Was like, here's a bunch of really good bands that just need to play in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to check out the Hellas. I've seen their TikToks here and there. But yeah.
Yeah, they are really good, a lot of fun. Gabe also plays with Monkey, the bass player for he plays bass and Monkey, but he plays guitar, I think saxophone and accordion.
Oh,
But I know he does accordion and acoustic guitar with the Hellas. So very cool there. Um, and the Sad Snack played. So yeah, it was a nice little mix of bands, and always fun. That was the thing is like, let's bring people out, bring bands together. Hopefully, they make those connections and move forward. That's always the thing is get it out there.
yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
these bands I would love to hear, but I like physical media, and
Me too.
most of these bands only have digital releases. I don't do that.
And that's funny
That's
you
what you
say.
see.
Chuck will not play unless he has a physical copy of it on
Hmm.
his show, and
Yeah,
Josh Kuntz with Viva Scott Radio will not do the same.
right.
But I'm like, dude, you're missing out on so much.
Mm,
Sometimes it's not even a matter that it isn't on physical. It will be on physical, but it's just not out yet. So, it's like I like being that guy that, sometimes gets that, single before anybody else just to kind of
Hmm.
test.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
It's like um, it's like anything. It's just like sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're playing it because nobody knows who it is. But sometimes it's, I do sometimes get a sent me, hey, here, check it out. What do you think? Or hey, here's a couple songs. Let us know which one you would play as a first single. And that's kind of neat to go, okay, you're taking my advice as somebody who's uh, what do I know? I'm just some guy who likes the music. But because the pandemic happened, I was able to use my time sitting at home doing nothing. I wasn't going to shows, wasn't
Hmm.
putting on shows, wasn't I was working from home. So I just, I was doing my show and just started reaching out to everybody, and that was basically it. It's like I'm on, I think, 78 stations now.
So
Wow,
US,
that's a lot.
so
Canada,
before we end,
Mexico,
tell
Ireland,
us about
Wales, Scotland, uh, uh, Belgium, France, Spain, New Zealand, the Philippines.
Wow.
Also an 8 a.m. station in Palomar at the college out there.
Oh, okay.
Several FM stations, an AM station, of course, lots of streaming stations as well. And then,
Yeah.
iTunes, whatever. It's all out there on the streaming services, like they say.
So your this is ska.com.
This is
What are
ska.com
your other?
or at This Is Ska Radio everywhere else.
Got it. You're on Facebook. You're on Instagram. You're on what other
Blue
platforms?
Sky, the Twitter. Um, not so much on the Twitter anymore, but it's still there. I don't want to abandon it completely
Mhm.
because there are still people out there that are on there that need happiness. So every so often, I'm not posting everything on there, but I'll throw something up. Like, it's Bob Marley's birthday, so I threw that up there. There's a lot of other stuff that happened today, but it's like, hey, Bob Marley, go listen to some Marley, enjoy
Right.
it. I think the last one yesterday I posted. It was the anniversary of Celebrate the Bullet coming out. So I'll do like a key one on there.
That's their best album,
Oh, I think it's
in my
and
opinion.
it was a single that came out, not the record yesterday. The record would have come out later in the month, but the single preceded it. Didn't make it in the charts, unfortunately, but a fantastic album. And one, they didn't get the airplay on the song because there was DJs who thought it was. Some people thought it was John Lennon being shot. Some people thought it was Reagan being shot,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of a
Bad timing.
stab at that, and so it didn't get played. And like
Mm.
cardiac arrest, people were like, "Oh, my dad died of a heart attack," and you're singing about it. It's like, well, Larson's dad had a heart attack, and he was writing about his dad's heart attack and how take it easy, take it slow, enjoy life.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't making light of it. It was kind of like, hey, this is serious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with that one, it was like didn't get to play, and by that time, unfortunately, two tone in England, the ska movement was kind of coming down. Hadn't hit hard here. So if you weren't a band that had really established yourself, you're not making it yet.
Mm-hmm.
We got Fine Young Animals. We got General Public out of English Beat, who both did well here.
Right.
Madness kept doing pretty well. Most of the rest of the band's not as Fun Boy 3 never broke here. Great songs. Colorfield never. So those post specials bands didn't quite. But then we saw Dance Craze. We danced in the aisles.
Yeah.
And then all these ska bands started popping up in the US.
Yeah, my introduction was I think the Toasters Recriminations album when that came out, that one and the English Beat, the Special Beat Service. Those were like
Okay.
the two that I remember.
Well, those were some of the early ones. And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The recrimination. Now, was that the
Black
CD
label.
that had recrimination on it, or the 12-inch?
The 12-inch, the black one that's on
Okay,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah, the black and white one that
Yeah,
Fingerling
it was
did.
on Moon, I believe.
Yeah, that was
Was it Moon or was it Unicorn?
Scaluloid.
Oh, was it? It's in my.
I think it was Scaluloid.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
later
no, actually, I think
re-released
Skyloid did the CDs maybe because Skyloid released a lot of those albums on CD.
But yeah, Bob Fingerman did the art on that. I got that later, and obviously you would have gotten that later on with that Special Beat album coming out.
Right. Yeah, it
but
was years after.
the first coming back to ska was listening to the Fishbone, listening to Untouchables, listening to Box Boys and the English stuff, and also having the Harder They Come soundtrack, that my dad had bought years before, and so I'm listening. I was surrounded with a lot of that, but you kind of hear things like, "Hey, I like this, I like that," not knowing the word, and they're like, "Oh, this is what it is." But Ska Boom, when that got released, that and the first Maroon Town album were both written up in, I believe, it was either Alternative Press or Rolling Stones. And I was living out of state at the time in Oklahoma. And so I'm subscribing to whatever magazines, picking them up, just what's going on. And I see that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I ordered them. And that would have been like 87, 88, right around there, right before everything kind of, started moving a little bit more. And then moved back to California, saw a few bands, but really, I was one of 10,000 people at the San Francisco International Ska Festival in Berkeley, California on Earth Day in 1990,
Mm-hmm.
and that kicked it off. That was the catalyst, that one moment in time that, kind of so many things started popping. So Special Beat, Breaking
Liquidators.
Roger, Dave Wakeland got back together with International Beat and performed
Yeah.
one time there with them. And then Roland Alfonso had came up and played an almost entire Skylight set with Let's Go Bowling,
Oh wow.
and went back home and said, "Hey, something's going on in America."
Right.
Frank and Roger went back to England and said, "Something's going on," and got the Special Beat put together. Roland got the Skylights reformed, but then bands like Gangster Fun and Me Mom Morgenthaler, and
From
other bands from around the country,
Canada.
like, something's going on in California.
Yeah, the Liquidators were from up there too. That played, right?
Yeah, Liquidator out of that was
But
their
they're not
last
really
show.
totally ska. They're more.
That was their last show, and they were amazing.
Yeah.
And then it was funny. Eric and a few other members from No Doubt came up. No Doubt was originally scheduled to play, and for whatever I heard, that Gwen's dad wouldn't let her go. Refused to let her drive up to, and like 2 months later, they're opening up for Bad Religion up here and Skank and Pickle. Skank and Pickle did the pre-party.
Nice.
They didn't do the show, but they did the pre-party. But yeah, Dancehall Crashers ended up filling that set, and that was right after Tim and Lint had left. But it was still that early iteration of Dancehall Crashers before anybody really knew who they were.
Tim and
But
Matt.
yeah, such a break. Skeletones played.
Nice.
Bad Manners.
Donkey Show,
yeah.
I think, did too, right?
And yeah. So after that, it was just like it just blew up. Every ska band it seemed like every ska band from anywhere in the world was playing through California.
Did you catch Potato Five? Did they play that?
Yes, Potato Five, great band too. They did a ton of early days. I mean, those early tours they did were with almost always with Let's Go Bowling.
I am almost positive they only came through here once and was.
Oh, maybe it was just a one tour. Yeah, but they
89?
they played a bunch of shows with Let's Go Bowling on that run.
Right.
And Dave actually is playing bass for them now. So he's and they have some new stuff that's been released. So that's kind of neat. I'd love to hear some new stuff from the Deltones.
They're supposed to have that that box thing come out. Forgot what it was. It didn't get released, but it was supposed to come out.
Yeah, like I said, I'd love to hear some like new stuff. They re-released the album. There was that live stuff. There's song on a cassette that they put out. But
right,
they're doing a few one-off shows. That would be a band I'd love to see at Supernova.
Yeah. It was this one right here. This one was supposed to be coming out. I don't know if you could see it.
Soon.
Oh, yeah, no, that came out. Chuck has them, yeah, on Mad Butcher.
Oh.
But that's just the album that it came out before on Unicorn.
Oh, this is just the
so it's a reissue.
Oh, okay. Because I have the Unicorn version and then the French version of that, not a Chalk, which is amazing. But I was lucky because what's his name? I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Went to England and saw when he saw Deltones and Potato 5, got me the 12-inch, or sorry, the 7-inch of the new Deltone or Potato 5 album.
Okay, yeah, I'm supposed to get a copy of that from Dave. Haven't received it yet. He was going to drop them off with a friend with a list of addresses to ship them out because it was like it cost way too much to try to ship them from the UK over. So he was going to at some point he's coming over here for a wedding, I think. I'm pretty sure he was out for. I didn't make it there, but for the Hepcat, Memorial, Greg Memorial show. But I don't know if he thought about bringing them at that point.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think Jose and I went to that show.
Yeah, we went to that show in LA.
Yeah, it was great. It was great reuniting. I got to see some of the cats with the actual Hepcats that I haven't seen in a while. Raul
Let's
was
Go
there.
Bowling was there. Cool. Reunion.
Raul was there. Of course, Lino was there. So it was great. It was great to see, everyone come together for that. But
this is Ska. This is Ska. This is Ska. This is